Is that the guy from this morning? The delivery guy. Silence. All eyes turned toward the man now standing at the center of the dining room, still wearing the same navy polo and worn utility pants. Still calm, still quiet, but everything about him had changed. Not because of what he wore, not because of what they thought he was, but because of what he was about to say. Just hours earlier, the kitchen staff of Prescott House, an elite restaurant tucked into uptown Charleston, South Carolina, had mocked a man they believed was beneath them. A delivery man. Unimportant. Disposable. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man they'd laughed at had signed the ownership papers just 3 weeks earlier. And today he wasn't there to drop off seafood. He was there to change everything. Thank you for being here. Sometimes the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Today's story is one of those. Quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it touches your heart, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next one. Now, let's take a closer look at what really happened. The morning sun rose clean and golden over Charleston's cobbled streets. Market Square was already alive, footsteps clicking, vendors shouting, and the scent of roasted pecans floating through the air. Jordan Hayes adjusted his delivery cap, tugging it low as the wind caught the edge. He double-checked the paperwork on his clipboard, then slid on a pair of gloves worn from years of labor. A truck door slammed behind him. The engine ticked softly in the heat. He had one last drop before lunch. A high-end place, Prescott House. It wasn't the kind of restaurant where you showed up underdressed. Marble floors, celebrity clientele, chefs with their own hashtags. Jordan had delivered to enough places like it to know the drill: smile, speak clearly, move fast, and expect to be ignored. He rolled the dolly around to the back alley entrance. Everything about the loading dock looked polished. Tall steel doors gleamed beneath brushed signage reading, staff only. The alley itself smelled like lavender sanitizer. Jordan knocked twice. The kind of knock that doesn't ask, it waits. The door creaked open, revealing a young man in a crisp white chef's jacket. He barely looked at Jordan. "You're late," the chef said flatly. Jordan held up the invoice. "Actually, I'm 10 minutes early." The chef didn't respond, just stepped aside with the kind of reluctant gesture reserved for something you'd rather not touch. Behind him, 2 other employees peeked around the corner. One smirked. The other rolled her eyes. "Don't block the kitchen." The chef snapped as Jordan pushed the dolly through. "Stay out of the way." Jordan nodded once. No need to fight a fire that hadn't started yet. Inside, the place looked like something out of a magazine. Chandeliers sparkled above white linen tables. An open kitchen gleamed like a showroom, every steel surface polished, every spice jar alphabetized. But Jordan noticed something else too. The glances, the whispers, the grins exchanged behind his back. Near the walk-in fridge, a server said, "Just loud enough. Guess they'll let just anyone in now." Louder, clipped, the kind that leaves paper cuts. Jordan kept moving, careful hands, measured steps. He stacked the boxes with precision. Organic greens, Gulf shrimp, handmade pasta bundles from Asheville. A voice behind him muttered, "You'd think someone delivering to a place like this would dress better." Jordan looked down at his uniform. Clean, pressed, functional. Apparently, not good enough. At the edge of the kitchen, a group of line cooks folded arms and whispered as Jordan passed. One, a tall man with slicked hair, grinned like a schoolyard bully. Bet he couldn't afford to look at the menu here, let alone walk through the front. More laughter. Jordan tightened his grip on the dolly. It wasn't his first delivery, and it wouldn't be the last. But today felt different. He kept his mouth shut. But inside something stirred. Back outside, he wiped the sweat from his brow with a clean rag, then loaded the second batch of boxes. The heat was climbing, and the sun had turned the alley into a kiln. He rolled the dolly back toward the door. Laughter still echoed from inside. They weren't even trying to hide it now. This time, the head chef was waiting. Malcolm Brent, square jaw, perfectly trimmed beard. Chef's coat starched within an inch of its life. He held a crate of shrimp in one hand like it was a biology experiment. "This the best they've got," Malcolm muttered, flicking a piece of ice from the packaging. If there's an issue, Jordan began. I can call the... Don't bother. Malcolm interrupted with a wave. Just finish and get out of the way. Jordan said nothing. The staff kept working, but Jordan felt their eyes still following him. Not curious, dismissive. They didn't see a man. They saw a job. And to them, the job meant less. By the storage racks, a young sous chef called out, "Hey, delivery guy, you missed one." Jordan turned. A crate sat by the wall. He was sure he hadn't overlooked anything. He walked over, bent down. It was empty. The kitchen burst into laughter. "Just messing with you," the sous chef said. "Relax." Jordan stood, looked at them, didn't say a word. He placed the empty crate gently back where he'd found it. Then he finished the delivery. Quiet, steady, professional. As he handed the signed invoice to Malcolm, the chef didn't even look at him. Just scrawled a signature like swatting a fly. "You can go now," Malcolm said. Jordan turned toward the door. Then someone behind him muttered under their breath, "Yeah, go back to wherever you came from." That was it. Jordan stopped, hand on the steel door. He turned slowly. The entire kitchen hushed. He looked directly at the server who'd said it. His voice was low, clear. "I came here to deliver something you clearly need more of. Respect." Then he left. But the real surprise, that was still waiting. Outside, Jordan leaned against the truck. He let the heat press against him. Not exhaustion, just weight. The weight of another day, of another place, where people had no idea who they were talking to. He glanced back at the golden letters above the front entrance. Prescott House. It still didn't feel real. Just 2 weeks earlier, he had signed the final purchase agreement. The restaurant was his. Every square foot of it. But Jordan hadn't come into money. He'd earned every penny the hard way. He grew up in a tiny town just outside Baton Rouge, where jobs were few, and expectations were even fewer. His mom cleaned houses. His dad worked double shifts at the lumber yard. Jordan washed dishes at a local diner when he was 16. He didn't mind the hours. He liked being useful. He worked his way up. Line cook, shift leader, floor manager. Eventually, he saved enough to open his own place. It wasn't much, just a roadside cafe off I-26, but it made a name for itself. Because Jordan ran it on 2 things: respect and consistency. Then came 2 more locations. Then an opportunity. Prescott House. An elite restaurant struggling under its own ego. He bought it not because it was perfect, but because he saw what it could become. But he didn't announce himself.
Not yet.
He wanted to know how the staff really operated. Who smiled when no one was watching? Who rolled their eyes at delivery guys? Who showed respect? And who only gave it when they had to? Now he knew. And by the time he drove away, one thing was clear: the staff at Prescott House were about to learn who they'd been laughing at, and what that man stood for. 2:57 p.m. The dining room of Prescott House was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence you feel more than hear. A few staff members whispered near the silverware station. One adjusted her name tag twice. Another nervously smoothed the tablecloths, though they were already perfect. The room wasn't set for dinner yet. No candles, no guests. But it still felt like a stage. They were waiting. At the back of the room stood Greg Tillman, the restaurant's general manager. A seasoned professional with a clipboard always in hand and panic always in his eyes. He checked the clock again. 3:00 p.m. Still no sign of the new owner. He didn't know much. Just that someone had purchased the restaurant 3 weeks ago. The name on the contract wasn't familiar. The new owner had requested a full staff meeting, said it was urgent. Greg had assumed someone with tailored suits and a LinkedIn headshot would walk through that door. He didn't expect him. When the doors opened, the room didn't gasp. It froze. Jordan Hayes walked in wearing the same dark utility uniform he'd worn that morning. The same cap, the same boots with sidewalk dust still clinging to the rubber soles. Not a smile, not a smirk. Just steady, quiet eyes that scanned the room like a man who already knew too much. Malcolm Brent, still in his white chef's coat, chuckled under his breath. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered, arms crossed. "This is what we're wasting time for." Greg blinked. "Jordan, this meeting is for staff only." Jordan nodded. "I know, Greg. That's why I'm here." A pause. You could hear someone shift in their seat. Someone else coughed, once, then stopped. Jordan stepped forward into the light of the dining room's front chandelier. No podium, no PowerPoint, no script. Just a voice that had carried boxes for decades, and now had something else to carry. "You're probably wondering what this is about," he said, glancing around. "Some of you already know me, or think you do." His tone was calm, measured. He let the silence do half the talking. "I came here earlier today to make a delivery." His eyes briefly met Malcolm's. "And I received a warm welcome." A ripple of unease stirred among the staff. A few looked down, some folded their arms. Malcolm scoffed. Jordan continued, still calm. "But before I go any further, let me introduce myself properly." He paused. "Then, my name is Jordan Hayes. And as of 3 weeks ago, I'm the new owner of Prescott House." No one moved. The silence slammed into the room like a steel door. A fork fell somewhere near the bar. Someone whispered, "No way." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "You're what?" "You heard me," Jordan said gently. "I own this place." Malcolm opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Across the room, one of the line cooks looked as if he might physically shrink into the floor. Jordan took a step forward. "This isn't about power. It's not about punishing anyone. I didn't come here to humiliate you." He glanced toward the far table, where one of the waiters who'd mocked him now stared at the floor, red-faced. "I came here because respect is everything in this industry." He let the sentence breathe. Then he looked at Malcolm again. "You judged me because of my uniform, because I rolled in a dolly instead of driving up in a black SUV. You looked right through me. You all did." His tone wasn't angry, just tired. "And I need you to understand something," he said. "That says a lot more about you than it does about me." No one spoke. Even the HVAC unit seemed quieter. Jordan's voice dropped slightly, more intimate now, like he was talking to each person in the room. "I started where you are. Scrubbing fryers, cleaning baseboards, fixing broken bathroom locks before a Friday rush. I've worn every role in this building, even if I didn't do it here." He glanced at the young hostess near the espresso station. She was blinking fast, unsure if she should cry or look away. "And I've learned something," Jordan continued. "The way a team treats the least powerful person in the room tells you everything you need to know about its character." He turned slightly, hands folded behind him. "I bought Prescott House because I saw potential, not just in the marble or the menu or the square footage, but in the people." He paused. "But if you don't see that potential in each other, it won't matter." Someone near the back cleared their throat. A server muttered, "I'm sorry," under their breath. Malcolm looked like a man cornered by his own reflection. Jordan didn't press them. He didn't pace. He simply stood anchored. "I'm not asking anyone to be perfect. I'm asking for better." He turned toward the room again. "Better attitudes, better assumptions, better respect. Because from this moment on, if we're going to succeed, we do it together." He let the words settle like dust, then added, "And if that doesn't sound like a team you want to be part of." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The message was clear. A beat passed. Then Malcolm, arms still crossed, finally spoke. "I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I just—" Jordan raised a hand, not to interrupt, just to stop the bleeding. "Actions speak louder than words, chef." Malcolm blinked. Jordan looked around one last time. "That goes for all of you." The staff stayed seated. No one reached for their phones. No one bolted. Because in that moment, they all understood they had been seen, truly seen, and they weren't sure they liked the reflection. Jordan turned toward the door, his pace quiet. But just before he left, he stopped. One final note, not dramatic, just a gentle truth. Respect costs nothing, but its absence can cost you everything. Then he walked out. Behind him, the staff didn't speak. No laughter, no jokes, no mockery. Just a room full of people who had seen themselves, for the first time, in a mirror they didn't expect. The door closed behind him, not with a bang, not with drama. Just a soft click that echoed louder than anything else in the room. Jordan was gone, but his presence hadn't left. It hung in the air like steam in a closed kitchen. Dense, silent, impossible to ignore. For a long moment, no one moved. Not even Greg. The manager stood near the back wall, eyes wide, clipboard clutched to his chest like a lifeline. He looked around the room, at the faces that now looked very different than they had just 20 minutes ago. The smirks were gone. So was the superiority. Now there was only weight. Malcolm Brent still stood near the wine cart, arms now at his sides, fingers tapping against his leg. He glanced at his shoes, then at the floorboards, anywhere but where eyes might meet his. No one was laughing. Not the sauce chefs, not the servers, not the barback who'd grinned when Jordan lifted crates of scallops just hours earlier. It was like someone had turned on a light in a dark room, and everyone suddenly saw the mess they'd been living in. Finally, someone moved. The youngest hostess, Tori, barely 20, eyes glossy with guilt, whispered, "I really didn't know." No one answered. But the silence around her said enough. They hadn't known. Because they hadn't cared to. Greg took a shaky breath. I think that's it for the meeting," he said. "You all have prep for tonight." Still, no one moved. Finally, Malcolm straightened his shoulders. "I need to step out," he said, voice lower than usual. He didn't explain. Didn't pretend. He just turned and left through the side corridor. For the first time in a long time, Malcolm didn't walk like someone in charge. He walked like someone trying to find his footing again. In the hours that followed, the restaurant felt different. No one said why, but everyone felt it. The chopping was quieter, the pacing slower. Even the kitchen radio, usually full of jazz or kitchen banter, remained off. It wasn't tension, it was something deeper. A kind of mourning. They weren't mourning Jordan. They were mourning who they just realized they were. That night's dinner service ran smoother than expected. But it wasn't habit, it was caution. Everyone double-checked orders, cleaned a little longer, spoke a little softer. And for the first time, the dishwasher wasn't treated like background noise. At 9:45 p.m., as the final guests lingered over creme brulee and espresso, Greg stood outside the kitchen entrance holding a napkin with smudged notes. He was supposed to prepare a memo for the new owner. Something professional. Something upbeat. But he couldn't write it. Because there was no neat way to summarize what had happened that day. How do you explain shame? How do you list remorse in bullet points? He folded the napkin quietly and slipped it into his pocket. Later that night, Tori lingered at table 9, the one by the front windows. She stared at the street beyond the glass, watching the sidewalk flicker under dim gas lamps. She thought about Jordan. How he didn't flinch. Didn't shout. Didn't need to raise his voice to make a room full of arrogant people feel 2 inches tall. She wondered what it must have felt like to be seen as nothing, then reveal you owned everything. And yet, he hadn't gloated. He hadn't rubbed it in. He had just spoken, and somehow that made it worse, because it meant he expected better. In the locker room, Malcolm sat on the bench for nearly half an hour after his shift ended. The coat hung over the hook beside him. He didn't touch it. He wasn't sure he deserved to wear it. He remembered the empty crate prank, the laughter, the casual cruelty. He remembered the way Jordan stood so still, didn't react, didn't even blink. That was the moment that should have told him something. That wasn't the posture of someone afraid of authority. That was the posture of someone used to having it. Malcolm exhaled a deep, rough breath, and for once, he didn't try to explain it away. He just sat with it. Over the weekend, staff conversations shifted. Little things changed first. Someone helped polish glassware without being asked. A line cook offered a clean towel without a smirk. Tori refilled the water station and didn't wait for praise. By Sunday night, people weren't talking about the new menu anymore. They were talking about him, the man who walked in with fish and walked out with their self-respect still intact. Then came Monday, and the real moment everyone had been bracing for. Jordan Hayes returned, not in a delivery uniform, but not in a suit either. Jeans, button-down, worn leather boots. He walked through the front door this time, and the room fell silent again, but not out of mockery. This time it was respect. He didn't address the whole team. He didn't need to. He met with Greg in the office, spoke with the kitchen crew 2 at a time, had a quiet conversation with Malcolm that lasted just 10 minutes, but felt like 10 years. No shouting, no ultimatums, just truth, and a second chance. By the end of the day, a new sign appeared on the staff bulletin board, printed in black and white. No logo, no signature, just a message. We build from the inside out. Every person matters. Every voice counts. Every role holds weight. Because the moment we forget that, we forget who we are. JH. The kitchen never went back to what it was before. Not because someone made a rule, but because someone broke the silence. Jordan had walked in a stranger, and left as something much more dangerous, a mirror. Weeks passed. The noise came back to the kitchen, but not the kind they used to know. This noise was warmer, less defensive, more human. The clatter of pans still rang out, so did the laughter, but it sounded different now, lighter. Less sharp around the edges, like the knives in the drawer had all been sharpened and then gently set down. At Prescott House, the change didn't happen overnight. No story worth telling ever does, but it happened where it mattered. In the glances between co-workers, in the quiet help exchanged without a word, in the way someone said, "Thank you," and meant it. Jordan never gave a grand speech again. He didn't need to. His presence lingered without needing a voice. And the team, they changed too. Not because they were forced to, but because once you've looked in the mirror, you can't unsee what you saw. Malcolm Brent still wore his chef's coat, but it fit him differently now. Not tighter, not looser, just more honest. He didn't bark orders the same way. Didn't roll his eyes when the dishwasher needed help. He started listening. Started saying people's names instead of just their jobs. And when someone new came through the kitchen doors, whether they were delivering scallops or scrubbing floors, he didn't judge. He asked how their day was. Tori, the young hostess, began training new hires herself. But before she explained the seating system or the call button, she always said the same thing first: the most important thing here isn't the menu. It's the way we treat each other. And that simple line meant more than any rulebook ever could. One night, months later, the restaurant received an anonymous 5-star review. It didn't mention the filet, didn't describe the risotto, just said this: "I've never felt so welcomed in a place like this. Everyone from the coat check to the kitchen made me feel like I belonged." That kind of respect. It's rare and unforgettable. Jordan Hayes read that review in his office. He smiled, just a little, didn't say a word, didn't print it out, didn't hang it on the wall. He simply leaned back, looked out the window at the Charleston night, and exhaled. Because the truth was he never wanted power. He wanted proof. Proof that respect still had a place in this world. That dignity didn't need a title. And that silence could still say more than shouting ever could. And maybe that's the real point. Maybe the story was never about a restaurant. Maybe it was about us. About how easy it is to make assumptions, to look at someone's clothes or job or skin and decide what they're worth. About how often we forget the weight of our words, the way they land, the way they linger, and how rare it is to meet someone who absorbs it all, without breaking, only to turn around and show you who you really are. Jordan didn't win anything that day, but he did something far harder. He changed the air in a room without raising his voice. And that's legacy. Not the kind made of gold letters above a door, but the kind that walks beside someone years after they've left. So next time you meet someone who doesn't look the part, someone who stands quietly while others laugh, remember, they might just be the person holding the keys to everything. Final words for the listener. Thank you for walking through this story with me. If it made you pause, if it reminded you of a time you were underestimated, or maybe a time you judged too quickly, you're not alone. We've all been on both sides. But change begins when we stop pretending we aren't. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, stories that whisper rather than shout, that pull us in, and then quietly leave us better, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because sometimes the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one you never see coming. Not because they speak the loudest, not because they wear a badge or a title, but because they carry themselves with quiet dignity, even when no one's looking. This story isn't just about a restaurant. It's about each of us. It's about the moment we choose to look past someone's uniform and into their humanity. About the kind of respect that doesn't ask for recognition, but changes everything when it's given freely. Maybe you've been underestimated, or maybe you've been the one doing the judging. Either way, there's room for all of us to do better, to listen more, to speak less, and to remember, always, that kindness isn't weakness. It's leadership in disguise. If this story made you feel something, don't let it end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about a moment that changed your view, or someone who did. And if you believe the world needs more stories like this, stories that lift quietly, not loudly, that build bridges, not walls, then you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss what's coming next. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other.